Good evening. It's a great pleasure to have David Byrne with us this evening. He gives us hope that you can operate in the commercial music world and maintain your integrity. And for that, we applaud you. Thank you very much. We have a great treat tonight because David's going to give us a preview of an album he's working on, and he's got some of the cuts finished. They won't be released till February of 1992. And he's not only going to play us some of the mixes, but he's going to play live a couple of the pieces in a sort of stripped-down version. So. And we're also going to be seeing some video clips of a variety of items which he's brought with us, so I think we're going to have a very good evening. One of the things that you've been focusing on so much lately has been Brazilian music, and we're going to start by showing a video clip from the album Rei Momo. This is the piece called Believe Mambo. And I wondered if we could talk a little bit about Brazilian rhythms. There are a lot of different ones. In this piece, which one are you using, for example?
I have to correct you a little bit. This one is actually Afro-Cuban. And the drummers on the session referred to the rhythm as an orisa.
Orisa, what is that?
Well, it implies to me that it has a religious origin, because the Yoruba gods that are worshipped in Santeria, the Afro-Cuban and American religion, have the gods are called orishas, and so it implies to me that the rhythm has some kind of link. But it's pretty common. I mean, the rhythm is pretty similar to a lot of other Afro-Cuban rhythms. It has the kind of clave, what they call the clave as a bass. So in this one, I think it's 3/2, which.
Do you want to hear a little bit of it, so you can show us?
It's not something that's played by an instrument. Like, it's not something like the kick drum or the snare. But nobody's actually playing it like that. But everybody's got it in their head. It's the kind of thing where in Afro-Cuban music, that's the kind of basic framework. Either that or the same thing flipped around. So it's just the reverse. Two quick ones and three other ones. And sometimes, so that's like the basic pulse that runs through a typical tune.
So you'd hear it in different instruments in different pieces, right?
You might hear an instrument play it, but there might not be any instrument playing it.
So it's the underlying kind of,
yeah, that's what makes it more, it gets mystical when nobody's playing it.
Did you learn hundreds of these different rhythmic patterns then over the
No.
last few years? No.
No. I learned kind of a smattering. And most of it I learned kind of by osmosis, just listening to pop records from Brazil or Colombia or Cuba or wherever. And I wasn't paying much attention to the intricacies of all the instruments or the rhythms or whatever. I'd pick up on the kind of the generic thing, like I'd pick up on the one of the most popular kind of grooves out of Colombia is cumbia. And it would be a kind of a groove that I really liked, so I'd just go, well, yeah, if I saw a cumbia record, I might pick it up, and I'd figure, oh, I might like this.
Who's playing in this particular performance we're going to see on a video clip as we listen to it?
The musicians or the dancers?
Musicians and the dancers and the whole bit.
The musicians are kind of New York, kind of a lot of New York Latin musicians that it's kind of a rotating group.
So in the album you have people in different cuts and different
Oh,
configurations.
yeah, and on a lot of kind of well-known Latin records, like on Willie Colon's record or Ruben Blades' records, and Johnny Pacheco records, or Celia Cruz records, or whatever. Sometimes you'll find some of these same people on. So that they're, especially in the New York recordings, there isn't like a fixed band all the time.
And when you made the video piece, you did it in black and white, which is a very nice touch. But who are the dancers that are shown?
It's a group called the Eddie Torres Dancers. He has a Latin dance troupe in New York that they're keeping some of the older styles alive, mambo, some of those styles, and they're kind of integrating some new stuff. And I thought they were great.
Let's take a look at Make Believe Mambo. Look like you're having fun there.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us what's going to change from this album to your next album. And before we do that, it just occurred to me that wouldn't be mistaken for a Cuban piece, because harmonically it's more complex than a lot of the ones I've heard. And there are a lot of changes, that modulations, things that I don't think I've heard in most Cuban music. Am I wrong about that?
I guess it depends on the type of tune. Some of the stuff is pretty complex, but some of it, kind of the chord changes and stuff, are kind of more like straight ahead, like 3-chord rock and roll, I guess.
How would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as complexity of lyrics go with regard to other Cuban and Brazilian musicians you're interested in? Do yours tend to be more surreal, for example, or strange, or are there people in Brazil who rival you for that kind of honor?
Oh yeah, I think that I can. People like Caetano Veloso and Tom Zay in Brazil, and there's a guy in Dominican Republic, Guerra, and he has who writes some great lyrics, and there's some great writers in Cuba, Silvio Rodriguez and some others, that I mean, I don't know.
They're real poets, real inventors.
Yeah, they're real poets.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be as good as them, but they're not writing just like, come on baby, let's dance kind of stuff.
What about your next album? Do you have a title for it? And not yet.
No.
What's going to be the big change? Will we recognize something from a previous album as far as style goes, or?
There's a lot of stuff I carried over, but I think it won't be all that evident, actually. I kept a lot of the horn section is still in a lot of the tunes, but not on every tune. And midway through the last tour I did, I brought in Cuban drummer, kit drummer who lives in Miami, a guy named Oscar Salas. And I found that it kind of it made the music sound less traditional, and it made it more accessible, gave it kind of a familiarity both to myself and to a lot of listeners. And so I kind of took those elements, played a lot more guitar myself and those kind of things.
Have you finished the album yet?
I got a couple more weeks to go.
So how many cuts will be on it approximately?
I don't know. We'll see
Not
how
sure.
they all turn out and see what's...
How many have you done? 7 or 8 now?
Yeah.
We were listening earlier to some of these, and there was one called She's Mad, which I think you just have to hear. So before David plays some of them live, why don't we listen to that one, which we have on a little DAT tape here. Let's see if we can get it to work.
Thanks.
Hey. It's still going.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
feel it now.
there's a sneak ending. Well, you'll hear it later when the album comes out. There's a very nice ending that we all missed. That's rock and roll. Hey, what's happening here?
Kind of, yeah.
It is a little different. Oh, that's this. Okay.
Still wrong.
Thought I was out of control here. We got to get Tom's ace cut out. So you're going to play us a couple of things
All right.
from the new album, huh?
I'm taking all your little toys away. I'm taking everything you like to play with. You don't have any say so. Whoops. Do we just chase whatever we desire? Oh, silent night. Oh, holy night. Sometimes you see me, sometimes you don't. You'll get to know me better after a walk in the dark. The monster in the mirror will take a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. I'm not afraid to close my eyes at night. I'm not afraid of what my dreams will show me. I saw a fish that had a human head. I saw some things that I would like to show you. The broken glass, the cars on fire. Open the cages and set them free. Mine eyes have seen the glory. I took a walk in the dark. It ain't no bedtime story. We'll take a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. Who'll help you now? Surrender, my love. Burn, baby, burn. Let it all come down. And now, Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost took one look and they said, hey, we're lost. How the hell do we get out of here? They shake their pants, they got so scared. No matter who you are, you need a walk in the dark. The prettiest thing I ever saw. I need a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. Ooh, we'll take a walk in the dark. Thank you.
Any questions? Anybody like to ask about the new song?
A Walk in the Dark. What do you think?
Can you record it just like you did it there?
I was tempted, but I don't. Yeah.
Any others? Are there any unaccompanied songs on the
You mean like this? No, I mean there's some that are pretty, kind of stripped down, but there's nothing this basic.
Do you perform like this in other situations? Have you done this before?
A couple of times.
In what situations? Like talks like this, or?
Well, I did. No, I did one thing in where I did like 40 minutes of.
A short thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna work with Arto Lindsay again.
I wouldn't mind it. I saw him just a few days ago. He's producing a Brazilian singer-songwriter, Caetano Veloso, and he's finishing it in New York. What I heard sounded really nice, but they're still working on it. What's forever? But you know, but for now, yeah, gone for now.
What women artists are you working with?
Good question. Well, on the last, no one really at the moment, but on the last tour, I worked with a Brazilian singer and writer and performer, a woman named Margarete Menezes from Bahia. And she's got a new record that she's finished, and she's doing pretty good. No, she's doing stuff. Julia's doing stuff. I don't know exactly what, but I saw her recently, and she's
Julia Hayward.
Yeah, she's doing something. Okay, here we go. It's a tiny town, and you can hang around with me. It's a tiny town, and everybody knows what you've been doing. So don't you mess around, 'cause everybody knows. Teeny weeny town, tiny town, tiny town. And every little town, if you look around, is a tiny town, tiny town, tiny town. Be careful, my darling, what you say and do. The shit that you make comes right back to you. And the whole wide world is a tiny town full of tiny ideas, with each tiny heart pumping up and down. Come be tiny with me. Such a tiny town, but we have trouble living with each other. Some would knock you down, someone else Thank you.
We've got another cut from this album that I want to play for you because it involves Tom Zé, who is a musician from Brazil that David produced a compact disc of, who is just an amazing man. Met him last summer. And he is from, where exactly?
He was born around Bahia in the northeast, kind of in the country. And then, along with Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil and some of those people, they all talked him into moving to Sao Paulo, to the big city in the south, in the late '60s, saying things are happening. We're gonna change the world. We're gonna write a new kind of music. We're gonna do this and that. And they did have a huge impact, but he never had the commercial success that they did.
He did a TV show that was notorious. Isn't that right?
Yes. I forget what it was. Maybe you know the
well,
story. I've forgotten.
I just read that he was on a kind of a quiz show called Stairway to Heaven, and he was supposed to do a song in between one of the quiz things, and he wrote a song that was something. What was the title of it? Do you remember? Stairway to Hell or something like that, in which he satirized the idea of looking for the $64,000 or whatever was being given away as a kind of escape from your plight. And when I met him last summer, we had a very interesting exchange at one point in a composer's seminar in which Fred Ho, who is a really fine musician from the Bay Area, many of you know, a saxophone player, was complaining about the situation for artists in America, and he said, you know, I'm lucky if I make $20,000 a year and doing this kind of work I'm doing. And Tom stood up and straightened up and he said, "You're rich." and we suddenly realized that we were dealing with a musician for whom $20,000 was an incomprehensible sum. There would be no chance of him making anything near like that during a year of work. And so it's been very difficult in the last few years for him to get his work out. But when I heard your compilation CD of his music, I really was impressed with the richness of his invention. And he arranged a piece for you now on this new album. I have it ready here. You want to tell us about that?
I sent him I'd written a song that used as a foundation a beat, a rhythm that's common in Bahia. So I figured, well, he'll know this groove. And so I thought, let me send it. We'll send it to him. See what he does. I asked him what to do, kind of an arrangement but requested don't use too many instruments. Don't get carried away. So he did it for some brass instruments, and then he came to the studio with these homemade buzzers made out of like big pens. If you take the ink cartridge out and you're just left with this thing that you can blow through, and he put little pieces of plastic over and put with scotch tape, and you could blow over them and it sounded like a duck call, like eh. But he had done, and he put little pieces of metal on so you could make it like a trombone. It could go and you could get different pitches. And
it's a slide kazoo.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of people in the studio, and each person was assigned one note. And it's not that different than other pieces that Tom Zé has done, where I forget the name of that process, where each person only plays one or two notes in the piece, and that's
or like a Hocket pattern.
That's exactly. Okay. And he would just say, "You hit on the one, you hit on the three, you hit on the two, you play the four, and you with the whistle play."
That's tough.
And
so are the lyrics yours in this piece?
They're mine and a artist/musician named Terry Allen. We kind of both wrote the words.
What's this one called?
Something Ain't Right. Oh, yeah.
So that's from the forthcoming album of David Byrne. we're going to show you a video of Tom Zay. He's something to look at visually. He's really an interesting looking guy.
50-second video, a 50-second song that he wrote.
And it was just completed this past summer, I guess, the video, right?
Yeah. I think the name of the song is an and an ah. And those are just about almost all the lyrics, too.
Yeah. That came out okay. Who did the sets and the costumes and
A
stuff?
graphic designer in New York.
Yeah, that's really nice.
A guy who'd never done a video before.
Is this going to be shown on television, or what's the video for?
Well, it was supposed to be for television, but so far we don't have any takers.
Anybody have a TV station here? There's another piece of his I want to play just a portion of, which is from that album. Let's just roll it. You'll hear what he's doing with multi-tracking is really bizarre. Things on the extreme left and the extreme right, and I asked him, I said, how did you get the idea to do something so ping-pongish like that? It's really like, nobody does that anymore. They did that when stereo first came out, and he said, well, I was working with this young engineer, and he did that. I didn't even know what was going on. I was very disappointed. I thought it was his compositional tool here. I want to get this guy to come here if we can. Great. Well, his name is Z.E. with an accent, Tom Zay, and it's a great service to us that you brought him to light up here, because I don't think we would have found out about him. I'm wondering if you can give us a little bit of an idea of what you go through on a typical process of writing lyrics for a song. Do you have a notebook that you fill with ideas? How do these ideas coalesce?
Yeah, there's ideas, phrases, couplets, or stuff like that, and then sometimes just I jot down subjects that I think would make an interesting song. Sometimes it's a title. On the record I'm finishing up now, most of the songs I wrote the words after the music, which meant that we could rearrange the music. When I was rehearsing with the band, I could, if the section in the middle sounded too long, we could cut it. If the section in the beginning sounded like it should be a chorus instead of a verse, we could switch them around. I didn't have to worry about the lyrics not making sense. I would just switch the melodies as well. And so I would do that and then sing. I was singing along, I had melodies, but I would just, in this case, I improvised words or nonsense or whatever I could come up with every take we did, or every rehearsal. So sometimes every time I sang a verse, it would be different. And some of those would lead to a subject, and sometimes they wouldn't. And sometimes I would just write as many ideas as I could possibly think of that fit the kind of meter of the song. So I just kind of start humming the thing, and sometimes I'd have one of those little micro cassette recorders, and I'd take it sometimes in a car if I was not in New York. Or in New York, sometimes I walk around with it. I look like one of those New York crazy people talking to themselves. But I talk into this little micro cassette thing. Lyric, I just kind of try to embed the melody of that song into my head, and then any words that came into my mind. So I'd feel like sheets filled with possible words. And then sometimes something would emerge that would say, well, this is what this song really seems to be about. and then that you could eliminate 90% or sometimes more of what you'd done, and then that would be the real germ.
You know,
start
that
with.
brings to mind something. I had a friend, Clark Coolidge, who's a really wonderful American poet, and he told me that he would, at first, when he was starting to write, take newspapers and cut them up like William Burroughs and Brian Gysin, and come up with unusual arrangements of things. And then, after a few years of doing this, he began to write at the typewriter as if he were coming up with those images, but he no longer needed the physical cutting anymore. And I can imagine something like that has happened to you over the years, but I don't know how you'd react to that. Are you able now to sort of anticipate juxtapositions that might happen by some means that before you might have done more mechanically?
Yeah, I mean, some things, I think. I think I can, for instance, if I go through, get to a certain point in a song, if it's a song, I can get to that point lyrically and go, something new has to happen lyrically here. I can't recapitulate the same ideas that I've already said. I can't just say the same thing in another words, with another melody. I have to
take a leap.
Take a leap.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see it from another point of view, or expand it, or contract it, or make it. If it was universal, all of a sudden make it personal. Or if it was personal, all of a sudden make it universal. Or do something, just shift it into another gear at some point.
So if you have something that's a symbol or that somehow has meaning on many levels, the work can be richer?
Yeah, I guess so. But sometimes it's just it's that juxtaposition that makes it richer. It's not any one part of it.
Is there any song that you've written where you wanted to get a message across that was particular?
Yeah, but what was I reading? Oh, it was an interview, and there was a Sunday paper here. I think it was a Polish or a Czech filmmaker who said that if you, now that they have a lot more freedom to say what they want, they don't have to couch their artistic stuff in metaphors. But then he said, but we don't know what to do now, because if you just tell people what you feel, what you think, and what's happening, that's just reporting. Then you can get that in. I mean, that's like being a newspaper. It's not, quote, art anymore. It's not, in this case, it's not a song anymore. It's just it's a telegram.
I wonder if we could have the house lights so that if there are any questions on writing literary matters particularly, I'd like to go into that just for another 5 minutes or so before we take a break. Yes, in the back over here. Have you often co-written lyrics with people?
I haven't done it very often, but I like a lot of Terry's songs, and so I thought, well, let me see what happens. And I did it a little bit on my last record, but that was mainly stuff where I wanted sections of the songs that would typically be in Spanish. I wanted them to be in Spanish, and so I definitely wanted help there. But on this one, I sent him the same kind of demos and rough recordings that I was listening to. Stuff where I was singing kind of gibberish. I was singing the same melody that I ended up with, but wasn't singing any particular words. And he did the same process that I was doing. He just wrote down different ideas that came to mind, and I used some of them and rejected some others.
Question over here in the middle, yeah. How do you deal with Portuguese or Spanish? Do you speak either of those languages?
I didn't have Spanish in school, but I took it for about 6 months last year, and it got, probably to high school level or something like that. But it's just something that you learn more easily when you're younger, and so it's not something that I picked up easily. But I learned, a lot of the words in songs and stuff are pretty much the same words reappear quite often in songs.
And when you're working with artists who speak Portuguese, how do you communicate? Translators, or?
Sometimes translators, sometimes... with Margaretti, when we were on tour, I could speak Spanish to her, and she could understand what I was saying. And her English was actually quite good, so she could speak English back to me.
Any other questions? Yes, over here in the front. This is a question about David's sense of humor and his comments on it.
I think it's, a lot of the times I'm really angry or pissed off or depressed about the state of the world, and maybe it's a way of snapping myself out of it, or not, not avoiding it, but not just winding myself up into a ball, kind of getting.
It's a release, huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a release, but not a release where I don't ignore what's happening, but where I can put a different angle on it or something.
So we can take it that some of these lyrics, which seem to be coming from an angry person, are in fact from an angry person.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that are angry are meant to be angry, but some of the stuff that's funny has anger and bitterness underneath it, maybe.
That's a good answer, David. Here, over here. Yes. Are there any political causes you feel like writing music for, especially in the '92 election?
There's things that I feel, there's quite a lot of things that I feel strongly about, but whether I could write a song for that is another matter.
It's not something you've done before?
No, I mean, I've tried. It's not for want of trying. I've tried to write songs that are whatever, anthems for a better world or whatever, but it doesn't come easily to me. And there's other people who can do it quite well, I think. And I think I've taken other avenues to whatever you want to say, express myself that way. I did posters that I plastered up on the street and that kind of thing, and those for me were kind of I felt like I was doing a better job of getting something across that way.
Was that in the early days, or?
No, this was
recently.
Yeah, it's just fairly recently.
Could you give us an example of one of them?
When Reagan ran successfully for re-election, I did a poster that was the official government portrait of Reagan, and it just had the word in Republican blue letters on top. It just said actor. And I put those all over New York and LA, but I guess it didn't work.
There's a question over here. Yes, sir. What inspired the lyrics for the Catherine Wheel?
Well, some of that stuff was kind of by commission almost. The lyrics that were used in the Catherine Wheel, some of them, because Twyla Thorpe, who was doing it, wanted the dance piece, this kind of evening-length piece, to be about a horrible family situation. Possibly it was something in her past or something, but that's what she wanted to express. So I kind of was doing my best to write lyrics that in some way reflected that, not always directly, but in some way or another.
Any other questions? Yes, right here. Everybody hear that?
Uh-huh.
There was a professor at the University of Connecticut who uses David's lyrics in a kind of forum in which he asks for analysis of the lyrics. Did anyone pass?
I think I've been trying recently anyway to write stuff that's easier to decipher, or maybe that doesn't require it at all. Where the songs actually seem to be are about something.
What about your
now
choreography?
or when I'm dancing?
In the films
Uh-huh.
and in performances.
Most of the time they're kind of spontaneous, but then they'll get kind of formalized, and then only some of the things. Well, like a lot of I guess choreographers do. You kind of just put on music, improvise to it, and find that this part kind of makes you want to do this, and this part makes you, and you kind of formalize it and go, okay, so I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and it ends up being a kind of worked out.
But you do the same each show if you're performing on tour?
After a while.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like, it's not like a Vegas kind of thing, but it gets to be a kind of thing where, well, you play the same chords on the guitar when you get, and it becomes integrated in that way, but it gets integrated in in an organic way. It's not like a, no, but it was I improvised it at one point, and then it became
David,
something that I enjoyed doing. I kept doing it.
When Talking Heads started out, the band sort of was very still and didn't move around a lot. Why did you change?
It took travel, I think, to get me out of it, or in a way. But I think it's also the kind of thing where a band, or musician, whatever, dancer, whoever, when they're first starting, there's a great temptation to use the received kind of things, like if you're a rock band, to dance like your idols or whatever, or to dance like
or dress like them,
or dress like them or whatever, to do that kind of thing, and not take the time to kind of develop your own vocabulary. And I think like a lot of choreographers or whoever that I've run into, you start off by stripping everything down to nothing, so you don't do anything. You stand still, and eventually, when you find things that you say, "This is mine. I don't feel like I've taken this, or if I've taken it from somewhere, I've made it my own. It's not something I've received and that I'm just doing automatically." Gradually, those things become part of your vocabulary until all of a sudden you're moving around all over the place. And
was it partly a function of your having expanded the band to do tours also?
It was the music changed. At first, I thought the music was very much stripped down, and it wasn't about a kind of communal ecstasy. And then when you got to be a bigger band and more rhythmically oriented, and the nature of the music, it made you want to dance more, but it also was more ecstatic in its nature. So it kind of was more appropriate to jump around to it.
Yeah, right here.
I guess I'm going to start playing this stuff in the winter, I guess, and then get here, I guess, in the spring.
Let's have one more question, then we'll take a break. Yes, back here. Why would you write lyrics that are more decipherable?
Good question. I don't.
You've stumped our guest.
I think because well, it's one of the things where if I've done the other kind, if I've done the ones where it's basically a series of non sequiturs that you kind of imbibe with meaning and passion, and it's a lot of fun to do it, and kind of, well, I can do that. Let me try doing it where it's a little more, where it's saying something.
Thank you. We'll be back for another half momentarily. Let's take a little break. Thanks, David Byrne. For our second half with David Byrne, we're going to start with a piece done by Talking Heads called Sax and Violins, which is, I gather, David, this was done because Wim Wenders needed something in a film, and he was going to use a part of this video in the film. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. He did a feature-length movie.
What's that called?
It's called Until the End of the World, and he just finished it recently. And he wanted. He has a scene where there's like a video playing in the background on TV sets and things. So he wanted a song for that. So it was a track that that was unfinished, and I finally got some words written for it, and he did a video for it. And because the thing is, the film is set in the near future, he did it. It's kind of very high tech looking, and it's shot on high def.
That's not like his work usually.
No, it's not like, it doesn't look like one of his movies or anything like that. I'll move this a little closer. Sorry.
So, are we ready with the video? So did you go back in the studio with Talking Heads to redo all of this, or did you just lay over a voice track, or how did this work exactly?
It was pretty much most of the track had already been cut. It was an outtake from the record we did naked. So we just kind of went in and did some overdubs, and I sang and did that kind of stuff.
You're going to release this?
In the spring.
In what kind of format?
It'll be one of those things where it's tagged on to like a greatest hits kind of compilation, one of those kind of things with like a couple of new tracks on.
David, I wonder if you could give us a little bit about your early life. You were born in Scotland. You came here when you were very young. I don't know at what age, but tell us why your family moved and what your father did, some of that.
The family with me in tow went to Canada when I was 2. I think my dad had trained as a electrical engineer in a college in Glasgow, but there was very little work there. There's still not a whole lot of work there. And American corporations, in this case Westinghouse, had an arrangement where they would bring over pre-trained people from other countries. And that way business was booming here, and they had plants in Canada and elsewhere. So I think the kind of deal was, we'll pay for your family to come over, but you have to work for us for a certain number of years, kind of a form of indentured slavery. And so so we moved from Canada to Baltimore, working in a different Westinghouse place. And then eventually my mom was working also teaching in Baltimore.
Elementary school, or what kind of?
Yeah, pretty much elementary school.
So were there musicians in your family before you?
There was someone who was called Uncle, but he wasn't really an uncle. He played instruments. I inherited a violin from him.
Uh-huh. Did you have brothers and sisters? Or?
I have a younger sister.
What does she do now?
She's in a branch of studies called epidemiology, which has to do with epidemics, or spread of disease.
Well, when you started playing around with music, was your father, because he was an electrical engineer, somehow instrumental in your development? Did you do things with him, or?
He helped me. When I was in high school, we had a little one of those little reel-to-reel tape recorders, and at some point I knew that you could do more stuff, so I started asking questions about it, and he rigged up a way so I could take the erase head off. So I could basically do sort of multi-track recording, but it was just kind of hit or miss. You could record something and then play along with it but you had no idea of what the level would be, how the balance would be, anything else. So it was kind of random how things would come out sometimes. And he also built some little effects devices that also were somewhat random in the way that they would affect sounds. It was,
Did he seem to enjoy this, or?
yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Huh.
So I kind of got a taste of that the technical end of things became part of the process in a way.
What about splicing tape? Did you ever try that when you were younger, or?
Oh yeah, I'd read about John Cage and things, and what other people were doing. So I was doing things like recording things and cutting them up and throwing them up in the air and pasting them back together and seeing what they sounded like.
This made you popular in high school, did it, or?
Oh.
Well, what's the connection with the visual arts then? I understand you went to Rhode Island School of Design. You met all the Talking Heads members there, or some of them. When did you become a visual artist as opposed to a person playing around with music?
I had been doing that kind of all the time as well. Drawing and painting a little bit, doing the things. It was fun. It didn't seem to be that. There didn't seem to be that much of a feeling that you had to separate things. I mean, at least I didn't feel that.
Did you intend to be an artist at the time in high school, or?
No.
What were you thinking?
I enjoyed doing.
What were you thinking you might be, or did you have thoughts about that?
No, I didn't think about it at all. My only thoughts were that I wanted to do something where I could enjoy myself and be kind of was creative as I could be in whatever field it was. And it really didn't matter to me what it was. It could have been in the sciences or music or drawing or whatever. And I really didn't care.
So, but you had an investigative mind, it sounds like, huh?
I guess, but I just wanted a chance to keep fooling around.
What about, I've always wanted to ask you what kind of hobbies you had, or what interests in reading you had, high school and college. Were there any particular areas that you sort of became obsessed by or followed?
I guess I guess that's it. Music and drawing stuff. And, that pretty much takes care of it.
But did you? What were the earliest instruments that you played?
Violin. I had that.
You had lessons?
Yeah, I had lessons.
Starting when?
Elementary school, I guess. At some point. It's not. At least for me, it's an instrument that it's easy to get a sound out of, but it's not easy to make it sound nice.
We were talking earlier about a violin that David had discovered that was the kind that was used in marching bands at the turn of the century, and it had a horn coming out of it, like an old gramophone. Did you actually play that one?
No, I'd heard that Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, had found one of those in an antique store and used it on a record once.
So you never had the thrill of playing in a marching band?
No.
So what about the guitar? Was that something that you took up in high school? Or?
Yeah, I guess it was junior high.
You taught yourself?
Yeah, out of those instruction books that you can buy, song books.
What kind of guitar was that you were playing a little earlier?
It's I guess it's one of those ones with nylon strings. Some people play flamenco music or classical music or things like that on it, but I just thought it was a warmer sound, a nice change.
I wanted to ask you also about your singing style and the different kinds of ways you use your voice. Do you have different strategies for how you, when you go into a falsetto, or do certain lyrics determine the way you approach singing a particular song? Or do you think of yourself as having 3 or 4 different modes you can flip into for the appropriate moment?
Yeah, I'm aware that I don't feel that I have to sing a song in one particular singing voice. I don't feel like there's a voice that I'm obliged to use all the time, and that's my singing voice.
From beginning to end of a song.
Yeah, from beginning to end, or from song to song. I feel like, well, let me see if I can sing this song this way and see how that sounds. I'm going to try another way and see what sounds best. And like on the record I'm working on now, I've tried songs in different ways, and there's a producer I'm working with, so you have another set of ears to bounce it off of. Sometimes the reaction will be, well, David, it sounds okay, but it doesn't sound appropriate to the words at all, or it sounds like it doesn't sound like it's fit the music sometimes. So sometimes it's a little bit trial and error.
Did you ever take a singing lesson?
Yeah, I took them for a while.
When was that?
About 8 years ago or
After
so?
Talking Heads had started.
Yeah,
right?
Talking Heads had started, and I think I was starting to think, well, I want to be able to sing on pitch. I want to be able to. I don't want to hurt my voice when I
mechanics.
sing. So, those kind of things. And so I took some lessons to learn some of those things. But I must say the exercises you get, singing scales and all those kind of things, are not the kinds of things that really encourage you to keep at it.
Sounds like some people out there sympathize with that point of view. I wonder if we could bring the lights up a little bit and bring the audience into this. There's some questions that arise in your mind right now. Yeah, right here. Is producing creatively fulfilling for you? Producing what? Producing other musicians.
I haven't done it very often. I mean, I did it on a few records, maybe. I enjoy it, but sometimes I feel that there are other people who are better at it, because often now it's gotten to be a very kind of technical thing. We're getting the sound of this and the sound of that and those kind of things, and I feel like a little bit at a loss in some of those areas.
Who was the best producer you worked with? Who produced you? Who are some good ones? Let's put it that way.
Well, Brian Eno was good, but he's certainly he can on some of the kind of technical things he can get a little lost sometimes too.
Who produced the new record?
A young guy named Nick Launay, this guy who lives in London and Australia. Not someone I was familiar with before.
Yeah, question right here. Any hip-hop or rap artists you're interested in working with?
I love the, I haven't heard the new one, but I really like the last Public Enemy record. And I thought, I mean, aside from the content of it, which is really strong, the sound is just amazing. But I mean, I don't think it's appropriate for what I'm doing right now, but at some point maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, question over here. The question regards the forest, David's orchestral piece, and the questioner wants to know about the photograph on the cover, the image, and about your comments inside the album about new versus old and our environment.
That's a lot of stuff.
This picture on the back cover?
No, I think it's on the inside. It's burning oil refineries in Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, I thought that particular one was appropriate because it's a roundabout story. The music was originally inspired by the Epic of Gilgamesh, which takes place in Sumer and Ur, the kind of ancient cities in what is now Iraq. And so the whole thing kind of has its origin in that, what is now that country. So and this was just an image that for what's happening there now. I had originally tried a different kind of working with a designer, trying a different thing where I was trying to juxtapose contemporary advertising with romantic paintings. Like there's this romantic painting of just hundreds of horses leaping over waves, and it's just this very kind of apocalyptic image. And there's a Marlboro ad that looks almost exactly like it.
That's right.
And I wanted to, and those kind of images are used we are receiving this kind of romantic apocalyptic image, but now it's being received in a way that it moves us to buy something. But
with the economy like it is, that might be apocalyptic too. You know?
Graphically, it didn't work, so I had to abandon the idea, but it was fun to play with it.
Question over here on this side. With the political understanding you have, how can you get your message across without preaching? What's the best way to do that?
I guess, what comes to mind is those things, whether act locally, those kind of things. And, so I guess when I ask myself that question, I try to think, well, I'll just try and kind of do by example or whatever. If I can do decent stuff, then that's is in some ways that's enough. In some ways, that's maybe going against the tide, and maybe it might serve as some kind of example.
What politically is moving you the most right now?
I mean, it's I can't single one thing out. It's like an onslaught of
question
stuff.
Back here. Yes. Motivation to do what? Is your motivation to continue working internal or external?
I think that, I guess they're tied together. I guess part of it is
contracts to be fulfilled.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of things. But you do something, you write something, or whatever, and part of the satisfaction comes from getting it across to people, performing or getting it be heard or whatever. So that becomes part of the process. That it's not enough to do something and look at it yourself and go, it's good, now I can put it away. You have part of the process is, and part of the satisfaction is getting it out and seeing how it's received, whether it's well received or hated or whatever.
Still think one of the pieces that's one of the most political that you did was with Eno, the America is Waiting piece, which seems to me still to be very powerful. And if you don't mind us interrupting right here, we have a video of it, which has a film by Bruce Conner. I don't know if it's been shown here, has it?
I don't think so. It may have been shown in a theater, but it can't be shown on television because it's all found footage that Bruce Conner uses, and I don't think he even knows where all of it comes from, so it can't all be cleared.
That's an amazing film. Do you have anything you'd like to ask the audience, David? Or?
Oh, no.
Nothing. No. Okay. Any questions here? Yes, here.
Well, I'm doing my best to.
The question is that David made a comment on MTV that he's resigned to the fact that he himself is a racist and always will be.
It's taken a little bit out of context there. It was a program, I didn't see it, but I remember being interviewed for it. It was a program on racism. And I said I had to, when I was really asked about it, I had to look at myself and say that I harbor a lot of racist instincts, and that they've kind of been bred into me in one way or another, not necessarily by my parents, but by whatever, living, watching TV, whatever, and that to outgrow or change that in myself, it's like a constant battle, because there's an kind of, it's overwhelming, kind of the messages through so many sources, it reinforces it. And it's like a constant fight to try and overcome it. And I don't feel like I'm completely free of it in any way at all. It's something that takes work.
Yes. The question is about The Forest. How did the original production came about, and then would you say something about the music?
The production came about, Bob Wilson had been Bob Wilson, the theater director, who has a show of his set, a lot of his set designs and things downtown here.
At the San Francisco Museum. Still around.
We'd worked together before, and he said, "Oh, the city of Berlin has money for theater productions this year. Do you want to do something together? We need an idea to tell them what we're going to do." So we met again, and I proposed doing an adaptation of this ancient epic of Gilgamesh, or at least doing part of it. And I proposed that we work on it together, and then he direct it as a theater production in his own way, and then I do it as a film in a very different way. And the ideal thing would be if both of these could be shown, say, in the same city when they were finished. And we thought that would be interesting. And because the money was presumably coming from, in this case, the German government, German Senate, it seemed appropriate to somehow deal with that. So I suggested that we set it in Germany during the Industrial Revolution, because there seemed to be some parallels, there seemed to be an easy way to parallel the story, the Gilgamesh story, with the Industrial Revolution. Because during the period of the Industrial Revolution, a lot of the music and poetry and painting and things that were being done was very romantic, and some of this romanticism, to my understanding, was a reaction against the factory and industry and mechanization, and some of it was actually pro. A painter like Turner, who might be taken as being as doing paintings about the glory of nature, was actually very much for he wanted them to build as many railroads as they possibly could, and he loved the factories and all that kind of thing. He thought this is going to be the glory of man. This is going to be the age of man, when man runs the world. So although some of these painters and poets and whatnot may have gloried in nature in their work, they might have also been proponents of the factory and industry and everything in the world as it's come to be. So I thought it was. So I tried to do music that reflected some of that kind of romantic sentiment and confusion. Does that answer it somewhat?
What would you like to know about the music? What was it like working with an arranger to accomplish the orchestration? Did you get what you wanted?
Pretty much, because, well, the process I used was, I used synthesizers and things like that to kind of do a demo version of the music. And like these things can now, you can imitate the sounds of violins and clarinets and everything else. So for the most part, I could kind of write the thing and hear it, something composers in the past couldn't do. I could hear it in a crude form. And so basically what I was asking the arranger to do was to help me get something so that when it's played by real instruments, it would sound more or less, and I hoped better than what I'd done with these samplers and things. So it was that kind of thing. I didn't get any really huge surprises.
The huge surprise is the ending, I think, where you sing like a howling dog over the orchestra, and it's something so many people have wanted to do. It's kind of a parody of opera singers. Has anyone heard him do this yet? It's amazing. Go to the last cut first. It'll make your day. Yes, question here. Early on, who were your major musical influences?
How do you mean? I mean. It changed from time to time, I think. I remember back in high school when I was playing with these tape recorders and had a guitar and that kind of stuff. The influences were kind of ranging all over the place. I remember I could go to the public library and get out records by whatever John Cage or Xenakis or all these kind of composers, and I was also listening to pop music and going to see whatever soul bands at the local club for teenagers, and you could also, there weren't very many available, but at that time you could also get like what was it, None Such, that label, and Folkways they had records of whatever African singing or gamelons and those kind of things, so you could hear this really wide range of stuff, and it was all kind of there to absorb.
Recordings have changed the speed with which we gather all this information too.
Yeah, at that time, it wasn't that long ago, but at that time, a lot of that stuff was just becoming available, and now it's just it's everywhere. It's just kind of every.
Do you find when you travel to Brazil that they know a lot about what we're doing, for example?
Oh yeah, I mean it depends on who you talk to, of course, but.
But there are people who can have access to lots of cassettes and
Oh, yeah.
records and so forth.
I mean, yeah, and you go to Russia or whatever. There's people that that know a lot more what's going on here than we do.
I can imagine that. Yeah, a question over here. Of all the songs you've written and performed, what are some of your favorites, David?
Oh gosh, I don't think I have any. I don't know. I mean, I probably do, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah, question here. What motivates you besides anger, as you said earlier? Motivates him to do what? To write?
Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's something that I feel a passion for that I want to get deeper into, or kind of sink myself into.
Having a child change anything for you?
I suppose it did, but I mean it had to. But I'm not so aware of how that it's changed me that much creatively. Maybe I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah. Yes, right here in the center.
I just feel the need to tell you, just so that you know, that you are the one man I've seen who consistently has best
Is Jane here? Where's Jane? Raise your hand. That's my hair cutter over there. Jane, we got to work on this. All right. Over here.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry. Oh, and you can't always hear him in a club.
In playing in clubs in the early days, did it matter that the words were sometimes unintelligible?
No, it didn't matter to me that much. I mean, I knew they were there. I felt strongly about them, but I guess I always felt that at least half the message or what a piece of music is about is what it sounds like, and that was communicating just as much as the words were. So I felt okay about it.
We had one more piece of music you were going to play for us. Do we have time now? Can you
Sure.
do that? This is from the new album. It's called Girls.
Whoops. I'm gonna need that. Seems like everywhere I go, seems like everything I do, seems like everything I dream about, seems about what people say, 'cause they can't see inside my brain. And I got girls in my mind. Every little girl, it's all in my mind. I remember them all, they're all in my mind. Long, short, and tall, all around my mind. When I get to sleep, I pray my soul to keep. I'm the star of my own movie. Honey, I'm the leading man. And you might ask yourself, who is that guy with the girls upon his mind? And I got girls in my mind. Every little girl staying in my mind, flying all around my mind, flying up and down, all through my mind, flying all around my mind, flying up and down, all through my mind, all around, all through my mind. I remember them all in my mind. Thank you. Sort of in a light vein.
I know we can't follow that, so let's just say goodnight. Thank you very much, David, for
Thanks.
being at the time.
Thank you for coming.